So I'm Dean Jessica Berg. This is Dean Michael Scharf, and we're here to welcome you to our annual Barristers Golden Circle Brunch. We are here today to celebrate the achievements of those who graduated 50 years ago, and this has become quite the annual tradition. We have welcomed guests to this event for 53 years. We gather to celebrate the remarkable achievements of your classmates, family, and friends, and congratulate the class of 1972, our newest members of the Circle. It's wonderful to host this event for the second year in our newly remodeled law school and student space called Ben's Place.
As Jessica said, I'm Michael Scharf, the other half of the co-dean pair. Let's start the program by going back in time 50 years. So back when you were in school, gas was only 55 cents a gallon. The VW Beetle overtook the Ford Model T as the world's best-selling car. The top movie was The Godfather, and a movie ticket was $1.75. The French Connection won the Oscar for the Best Picture. The hit TV shows were All in the Family, Sanford and Son, Hawaii Five-0, and Maude. Now, for the hit songs, and we see that, we have a faculty student rock band, and some of you students here have listened to it and know that even after 50 years, we're still singing this one. So this is American Pie. It's on our list. And The Candyman by Sammy Davis Jr. was another big hit. Early on June 17th, 1972, police apprehended 5 burglars at the office of the Democratic National Committee in the Watergate complex. We all remember that. What followed became the most infamous cover-up in the history of the United States. And Professor Lou Katz was in his 3rd year of teaching at the law school. That was an interesting segue. Now, out of these times arose some amazing law graduates. There are 8 members of the classes of 1972 attending today. Dean Berg and I are going to tell you about their achievements in just a few minutes. Their participation represents the dedication and commitment their class has shown to the law school over the years.
We want to start by recognizing the class of 1972 Reunion Advisory Committee. Joe Alata, Tom Brigham, Steve Cohn, Charles Greer, Jeff Solomon, Ed Titleman, Diane Rubin-Williams, and Lou Winiarski. We sincerely appreciate their efforts in encouraging participation for reunion events and fundraising for the School of Law. The Barristers Circle is a distinguished group. 21 of 29 Centennial Medal winners, the highest honor given by the Law Alumni Association, are members of the Circle. And so many of you have had extraordinary accomplishments in your careers and personal lives. We're proud to gather everyone here today to celebrate your accomplishments. We'll now move forward to the formal induction of the newest members of the Golden Circle. Before we begin, however, I'd like to acknowledge the members of the class of 1972 and all other members of the Circle who have passed away. Their names are listed on the posters in the back of the room and on the slide here. Let's briefly pause for a moment of silence to remember them. Thank you. Dean Scharf and I will now welcome a representative from the classes to share some remarks and memorable moments from their law school days, and then introduce you to each of our inductees. When your name is called, please come to the podium so we can present you with your barrister certificate and take a photo.
Now, to get us started, we'd like to ask Ed Titleman from the class of 1972 to come up and say a few words. Ed is visiting today from Pennsylvania. Ed, come on up.
Thank you, Deans. So, good morning, everybody. Let's see if we're awake. Come on, we can do better than this. Okay. In In 1969, a group of naive and very nervous students walked into the old law school. We were shortly introduced to the Socratic method and the inappropriate humor of Professor Schroeder, which still hovers here somewhere. Then on to civil procedure with Professor Jacoby. He wore his glasses at the end of his nose, scanning the class lists with our photographs, and we all sat there on the edge of our seats secretly saying, "Don't call on me." So, and I can demonstrate this. Mrs. Williams? You gotta stand up, Diane.
I want to say that Rule 36C comes after Rule 36A and before Rule 36C.
That was very good, Mrs. Williams. Because my name was at the end of the alphabet, I sat pretty far in the back, and I learned how to imitate Professor Jacoby's voice. And one day, I'm in the back, and Professor Jacoby's arranging his papers, and we had a fellow student named Mr. Wills, and he sat way up front, and I'm in the back, and I go, "Mr. Wills!" And Wills jumps up and he says, "Yes, Professor Jacoby, yes." And Jacoby looks down and he says, "Mr. Wills, I did not call on you." Much to his relief, he sat back down. Many of us also remember and feared Professor Haskell's property class. See, there's still groans. He was very strict, and like an Olympian god, he sat in front of us all and gave us the word from on high on property. He was trying to fill our empty minds with knowledge. But one day, after class had started, one of our classmates, Ken Roppel, and remember the old law school in the building in the big meeting room, it came down and there was a long aisle going down the middle. The class had already started, and Ken Roppel comes in late and goes waltzing down to his seat, which is way up front. And Professor Haskell moves his glasses down and he says, "Mr. Roppel, aren't you going to genuflect?" And after that, his nickname was the Pope. So then there was the time Bob Gross, another one of our classmates, had the audacity to raise his hand and say, "Professor Haskell, all we ever hear is about the owner's rights. When are we going to hear about the tenant's rights?" And Professor Haskell looked at him and said, "Mr. Gross, we're here to learn the law, not to change the law." Needless to say, that did not go over very well with our class, because remember, this is the time of the Vietnam War going on. There's a lot of social change. And our class, even our class, it was not a very diverse class. I mean, I think there were 3 or 4 African American students. Carolyn's 3. Carolyn's here, and Al and Walter were the other ones, I think. And maybe we had 10 women law students, Diane? Yeah. Something like that. And the rest of us were just knuckleheads. So, and then we also had the opportunity to have Professor Ovid Lewis, who introduced us. He used to hand out sheets of paper, introduced to the world of the Rube Goldberg way of teaching law. He would have sheets, and different cases would be connected to one another, and he would explain to us how these, or made us explain to him, how these cases were connected to one another. And it actually was a brilliant way of teaching us how the cases were connected. He was also our professor. He loved our class because we weren't like every other class. We didn't go along with everything. We challenged things. He was heavy set, and he played badminton. and he could beat every single one of us without moving, playing badminton. Just a great guy. He also became the dean of Nova Law School in Florida, and ultimately the president of Nova University in Florida. Well, the next year in our second year, we had a wonderful time meeting new professors. Gabinet, who we all loved, and I'm sorry he's not alive anymore. He was a fabulous guy. Ken the Kid Cohen, Earl Lycan, Sid Picker, Gail Siegel at the time, Messerman, and a lot of others. We had Artie Austin, of course, and but they were sort of young Turks. These were younger guys. Now they're all old guys, but they were all young when we were there, not much older than we were. Then we come to when they had bombed Cambodia, there was huge demonstrations on this campus. They closed down Euclid Avenue, and we were talking about they were closing down the university. Came to the law school, and Dean Tepfer called a meeting of all the students, all of us, in that big meeting room, and he got up in front of us. He made a speech about. He says, essentially, it's up to you whether you want to close or keep the school open. And then he made the mistake of saying to us, and by the way, the sword of Damocles is hanging over your head. I have to sign off on your approval to take the bar. And after that, overwhelmingly, the students, and we had to walk, and by the way, we had to walk down and vote and go to one side or another. So he saw how we were voting, and he said, and after that, overwhelmingly, the students voted to close the school down. You could still take your exams if you wanted to, but if you didn't, it was put off. By the way, Dean Tepfer was a really wonderful guy, really, really wonderful guy. In our second year, there was also the famous Guglielmetti-Tyler production of Ramo. Now, most of the people outside the class won't know this, but they put up signs all around the school, and it said, about 2 weeks, it said, Ramo is coming. Ramo is coming. 2 days before Ramo gets here. 1 day before Ramo gets here. And we're all going, who the heck is Ramo? Well, it turns out that Paul Guglielmetti had a guy who actually was a first-year student who lived upstairs from him. And one day Paul meets him and he says to him, hi, I'm Paul, who are you? And he says, I'm George. And what do you do? Well, I'm a first-year law student. Paul says to him, I never see you at school. And George says, that's because I never go to school. And Paul says to him, well, what do you do? He says, well, I have a clown act. I do parties and things. And so Paul and Ralph come up with this idea to do this activity. So finally comes the big day. Ramo's coming. Lots and lots of students. I don't know how many of you were there in the corridor. In comes Ramo, and he's dressed in a clown suit. He juggles candy. He throws the candy all around, and he walks away. The faculty did not think this was funny. The students loved it, but the faculty did not think. One of our professors actually thought it was a reflection on his class, to which Ralph Tyler said, well, if that's the way you want to look at it, that's okay with us. So, also in our second year, a group of us, and Chuck Greer and Ruth and a few of us, we produced the first and only law school humor magazine called The Haw Review. I tried to find my copy, guys. I couldn't find it. In the Haw Review, there was also cutouts of each professor with clothing, like when you were a kid, you'd put clothing on people, and we put people's bodies and their heads, all the professors' heads on these things, and you got to dress up your professor any way you wanted. Well, we never got funding for the second year of the Haw Review. Well, there's 1,000 stories here in the naked city, as the TV used to say, and at the law school. But these are just a few I wanted to share today. I know my colleagues remember some of them dearly. And somehow we made it through law school. We learned how to practice law or to use it in other professions. And I hope, and I think most of us did, make a difference in the communities and the states that we lived in and in the country. So I just have one more thing to say, and I'm really sorry she's not here to join us. But Mrs. Tannenbaum, our beloved registrar, passed away on her 100th birthday last year, and she made it to our 45th reunion, and I know she was pushing to make it to this one. So Mrs. T, wherever you are, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed. All right, so let's start with our inductees. Our first inductee today is Carolyn Watts Allen, class of 1972. Carolyn has been a lawyer and activist for over 50 years. In 1990, Carolyn and her husband Robert, along with 19 other urban pioneers, founded the Renaissance Place housing development in Cleveland's Huff neighborhood. Their goal was to bring reinvestment in the Huff community. A recent new housing development has been named the Allen Estates in honor of their vision for this important historic neighborhood. Carolyn's favorite thing in the law school was working with her African American student colleagues to establish the second Black American law student chapter in the country. The joy of the movement for her is now being a first-time grandmother to 5-month-old Lydia Rose Philpott. Carolyn, congratulations.
Our next inductee is Joe Alata. Joe received many honors during his college career, including Outstanding Fraternity Man. Upon graduating from law school, Joe was a law clerk to the Honorable Don J. Young, Judge on the United States District Court, Northern District of Ohio. He then worked as an associate in a law firm concentrating in employment law. He founded Alata Farley Company, LPA, in 1979, where he served as the president until 2004. After retiring, he and his wife moved to New Mexico, where they designed an energy-efficient home that included several solar panels that heated their home and water, and other solar panels that produced electricity for their home, with the unused electricity sold to the local power company. After his wife passed away in 2016, Joe moved back to Ohio to be closer to 2 of his 3 children and grandchildren. His oldest son and his wife are both graduates of Case Western Reserve University School of Law. Come on up, Joe. Come closer.
Our next inductee is Lee Colson. Lee is the executive in residence for entrepreneurship at the Lorain County Community College. His duties include being director of the Blackstone Launchpad and involvement with other entrepreneurial projects throughout the campus. Prior to joining LCCC, Lee founded, grew, and harvested various entrepreneurial ventures in the healthcare industry within the greater Lorain County area while operating a solo practice and serving clients as an attorney. As a practicing attorney, Lee continues to advise business clients in the operations and organizations of various entrepreneurial ventures. Welcome into the Barristers Circle.
Our next inductee from the class of 1972 is our dear friend Bob Rapp. Bob is a law professor and writer who we are lucky enough to call one of our own. He teaches securities reg, law theory and practice in financial markets, and is a dissertation advisor to the SJD program. That's our program for foreign law students that's equivalent to a PhD. He practiced at Calfee, Halter, and Griswold LLP here in Cleveland from 1975 to 2017 as senior counsel, partner, and associate. Congratulations, Bob. Come on up.
We should say we missed two important things about Bob. One is his core class in business associations, but even more importantly, he holds the office across the hall from me, so I get to see him every morning. Our next inductee from the class of 1972 is Diane Rubin Williams. Diane worked for the Antitrust Division in the Department of Justice and then the U.S. Attorney's Office. She job shared a federal clerkship with her husband Ralph so they could each spend time with their kids. She then worked part-time as a public defender and had a private practice out of her house. Eventually, her family moved to Dayton, and she worked in the law department of Lion Industries. She's volunteered with immigrants, school kids, literacy, the Darfur crisis, babies, and community relations. She marches for Black Lives Matter, the environment, healthcare for all, LGBTQ rights, and women's reproductive rights. Diane, welcome to the club.
Our next inductee into the Barristers Circle is Jeffrey Solomon. Jeff's legal career was as an in-house corporate attorney, having served in roles for the Lazarus Division of Federated Department Stores in Columbus, PPG Industries, and Axial Chemical Corporation, both in Pittsburgh. He had planned on Pittsburgh being a 3-year pit stop on his way to moving home to Boston and civilization, as he would say. But they still live in Pittsburgh, which worked out as he was never a Patriots fan. I guess Tom Brady wasn't his thing, and it was easy to be one for the Pittsburgh Steelers. During retirement, Jeff has been taking a variety of courses from the Oshirk chapter of Carnegie Mellon University, as well as being involved and engaged with a number of nonprofit organizations and traveling extensively, especially to his favorite city, Paris. On a personal note, Jeff and his wife, Sandy, who graduated from the Mather School at Case Western Reserve University, they recently celebrated their 53rd anniversary. Congratulations, Jeff.
Our next inductee from the class of 1972 is Ed Tettleman. Ed developed the first healthcare practice for the poor in New Jersey with a focus on accessibility of services. He was one of the attorneys who brought the right to choose versus Byrne, which resulted in the New Jersey Supreme Court requiring the state to pay for medically necessary abortions. He eventually joined the New Jersey Department of Human Services as Assistant Commissioner, where he launched the school-based youth services program that offered comprehensive services at or near schools throughout New Jersey. The program just celebrated its 35th year and has served millions of students and families. In 2001, Governor McCreevy asked him to take over the New Jersey Office of Public Guardian. During his tenure, he helped to improve and reform New Jersey's guardianship laws. Since 2010, he's been mediating for the courts and teaching at Rutgers. We won't hold that against him. He feels lucky to always have had the support, love, and assistance of his wife, Jan Bishop, AIA, his children, Jonathan and Gabriella, and his family. Congratulations.
And that brings us to our final inductee from the class of 1972, Lou Winarski. That was good, well-timed, Lou. so come on up. Lou is managing partner of Sky Properties, LLC. Sky Properties owns and manages commercial properties. Lou retired as counsel to Washington Gas Light Company in Washington, D.C., which is the gas public utility serving the greater D.C. metro area. Prior to that, Lou served in a variety of public roles, including the Assistant Attorney General for the state of Ohio. We are lucky to have Lou as an alumni leader. I'm just going to go off script here because Lou serves with me on our Dean's Council for Global Legal Studies, and he makes it possible for our law students to go and take an extraordinary program called the Concurrent Degree Program, where our students can spend their third year of law school at Middlesex University in London, University of Paris in France, or Camillus University in Spain, and Lou makes it so that their living expenses are paid for, and that makes them able to do that. They get 2 degrees when they graduate at one time for no extra money. It's an incredible program, and we owe that to Lou, so thank you for that. Lou and his wife Sue, who I've also gotten to know over the years, and she's sitting right there, spend their time between Sarasota, Florida and Bethesda, Maryland. We're so glad Lou was able to make it safely to Cleveland from Florida after the hurricane. Congratulations, and thank you for joining us, Lou. Thank you for welcoming the class of 1972 into the circle. Please continue to enjoy food, drink, and each other's company for the remainder of the program. For those of you who are attending the CLE session with Professor Jonathan Adler, it's called The Past, Present, and Future of Precedent in the Supreme Court. I can't imagine any year where such an event could be more timely and important. So you guys are really in luck. And John Adler is one of the best lecturers I know. So that's going to begin at 12 o'clock noon in the moot courtroom. You still have 20 minutes before that. We also look forward to seeing the members of the class of 72 at your class dinner this evening. And that concludes our program. Thank you, everybody.